My recording started. So let's get into things, and obviously, um, people will join as we continue. I'm sharing the module outline. I do believe you guys can see that. Let me see if I can zoom in a bit. So let's start with the normal housekeeping. I've got I sent a message earlier about ICE. Again, just my quick take on ICE. ICE is still with us. It's one of those um, easy to score 10% of your module opportunities. So I gave you guys a bit of extra time till this evening. If you haven't done ICE, it's all on ARC. There's a total of 4 ICE tasks, remember, folks. And then when you complete those, you get a mark for participation. Good evening, Musa. And that is 10% in the bank for you for the module mark. So please, I do prevail upon you to to take that opportunity with both hands and get your ICE marks. Then just looking at the module outline, zooming out a bit first before we zoom in. I must say, guys, part 2, done and dusted. Can you believe that we are here and that things went so quick? So part 3 now, data collection. We'll get into that a bit as well. The weighted totals for the module, let's just look at that quickly. We're sitting with a 10% ICE, we know that. We're sitting with part 1, which accounted for, sorry, I'm scrolling very quick, 20%. We're sitting with part 2 that accounted for 15%, 10% for part 3, which is the next one that's coming up. Deadline the 24th, it's about a week, 10 days from now. And then the balance of that is in your research report. Let me reiterate again, good evening, Lily, that
Good
your,
evening, sir.
how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, good, thanks. Thanks a lot, Lily. Your part 1, 2, and 3 is marked by your part leader, your part, well, not part 4, your research report is marked by someone else, and it will probably be also moderated. Most likely it will be moderated as well. So this is the last milestone submission that we're looking at with your pod leader. After that, it will be marked by externals and the moderation examiner. All right. I think we've come a far way, and I want to tell you the best news I have for you folks at this point in the game is that with part 3, remember the first hurdle, as it were, was to get your topic sorted out. Can you guys remember, if you think back, uh, how it was a bit of a to and fro, and it was a thing to finalize a topic, eh? And then we said, oh, but it's wide and we must narrow in and change a bit here, but we finally got that, and we got topics approved. And then we had ethical meetings, and you guys were issued with ethical clearance letters. Remember, the ethical clearance letter is your green light to say, I can commence data collection. Now, the nice thing about part 3, where we are finding ourselves at this point, is that your study, in a sense, if I can use this terminology, takes on a sense of its own. Um, you're going to give birth to this project, but now, where we sort of dealt with more abstract constructs, when you collect data, you are sitting with something more concrete. You're sitting with something much more tangible. And what I often find is that students will say, once you do that, it really earths your study and you start to make real sense of it. I want to also, right at this point, encourage you guys and say, make the most of your data collection. Remember, we are sitting in the qual side with 3 interviews as a minimum. That means that's the minimum we will accept. Nothing stops you from doing more interviews, qual people. Quant is sitting with 10 responses in a quant study. Again, nothing stops you from getting more, but perfectly fine if you meet the minimum sample sizes and the minimum data collection. I think the overarching thing I want to say at this point, seeing that this is where we're putting our next steps, is please own the data collection responsibility. Own it. Do whatever you have to do to make it happen. And I will tell you this, in the 10 years that I've been doing this, and even in my own research prior, I can attest to the sometimes frustrating, painful aspects even of getting people to comply. You make appointments with people and then the morning you are heading out, they all of a sudden cancel. Or people that promise that they would follow the link to your online survey if you're a quant student, don't do that, and you're sitting here because you want to start analyzing your data, and now something is holding that process back. Or you're getting people, believe it or not, again in the quant space, where they don't complete the full survey. Now, in that case, you aren't really allowed to use that survey. That response is regarded as a void, as a null response, because it wasn't a complete survey. What do you do now? So I want to always guarantee you that you're going to have some hiccups and some little thingies that irritates you and frustrates you, and it's people, guys. It is a fact that the people helping you guys with your data are doing you a favor. Remember, we are not allowed to incentivize people in any way, shape, or form. We are asking them, we are approaching them in a place of sincerity, in a place of real interest in what people have to say, and that alone is often something that thanks Medical, let me have a look at that. It's often something that will really get people to be interested and to talk to and so on. More so in the qual space, where you've got a one-on-one situation. Quant is a bit of a, I mean, again, if you take it from where you're sitting yourself, with everything we've got and all the busyness and all the things in our lives, it is a bit of a commitment to sit down for 10-15 minutes and run through a survey. So these people are doing us a heck of a favor to do the data completion for us. I seldom, when I receive lots and lots and lots and lots of links to participate in studies. And my initial response is always to say, oh my goodness, I'm not in the mood for this. I don't want to do this. And then I think, oh my, you know what? There was a time when I was looking people in the eye desperately to get data. Let me help out this person. The long and the short of what I'm getting to is, please own the process. Again, there will be no sympathy from the powers that be when you say, listen, I couldn't get my data, or I had a hiccup, or this or that. That's not gonna win you any marks or score you any credits. Do what you have to do, and guys, don't leave any stone unturned to make happen what should happen. If that means you have to jump in a car and drive out somewhere, if that means you have to pick up a phone or send an email or beg, ask, whatever it takes, do that to get your data done. On the positive side, the sample size totals is really not big. The 3 interviews, the 10 quant responses is manageable. It's doable. We don't have a lot of time. We're sitting with part 3 on the 24th. We did get that extension. Thank goodness for that. I think the way it was spaced was a bit tight. Yes. So I think it was a good call from National to give us that extension. Thanks for that. And I want to tell you also that collecting the actual data is not time consuming. You're going to spend a bit of time in analyzing the data. In the case of Qual, you are going to do your transcripts. Guys, and if you looked at last week's session, I hope all of you watched it, where I did a bit of Qual, or I played around a bit with Qual, and I played it. Good evening, Leonie. I played around a bit with Quant, and I showed you, in reality, how easy, quote unquote, it is to do that. But it is time consuming. If you don't have the data, you don't have a database, and you cannot analyze. So I would prioritize almost the idea that you buy yourself time by getting your database there. You can maybe sit in a situation, Qual guys, again, where you say, look, I've got 3 interviews, but when I came back to my desk, I actually realized, one of these interviews didn't really give me a lot of substance. I've got a question mark on the integrity of my database. I'm going to line up an additional interview. And if you have time to do that, you have time to do that. I don't want you guys to do manual transcriptions, and I'll tell you why. The manual transcription robs you of an opportunity to immerse yourself in the data. You will see the minute you sit and talk to the people doing your interviews, you already will see how some themes rise to the surface. The nice word I like to use is emerge. They sort of jump out. Remember, when you're sitting talking to people, whether it's in a Teams space or in a face-to-face physical close proximity space, you don't want to sit there with your eyes on a notepad. You want to look those people in the eye and have a proper conversation. You might make 1 or 2 keyword notes as you conduct your interviews, but that's not where your analysis takes place. This is your data collection step. So your attention is with the participant, the human being sitting across the table where you are doing this interview, or the human being sitting on the other side of the computer. So if you do Teams, obviously it's going to do transcriptions. I would always prevail upon you to do a manual transcription. By that, immersing yourself in the data and interacting with the data, because now it's the second time you interact with the data. The first time you were there in your interview, you did your interview, your brain started picking up and connecting dots. Your brain is a marvelous organ. You will see how your brain makes sense of this ordered chaos, folks. Now you go back and you listen and you type. It's the second time you interact. In analyzing it further, you can say, I'm going to listen to the recordings repeatedly. I'm going to work through and read through my transcriptions repeatedly. And so I will see these themes. So I tell my students, and I think the rest of you would be wise in doing that, is to do a manual thematic content analysis. The purpose of that is to say, I'm going to give language to the research phenomenon or the topic under investigation. I'm going to give the linguistic frames that rationalize or give meaning to the database from the perspective of my participants, my stakeholders, by identifying these themes. Quant people, once you've got your quantitative data and you know now the numbers are going to start making sense, and you're running your descriptive analyses and you're running your correlation, if correlation is part of your planning, now you have to make sense of that, and you have to make sense of it in a way that doesn't leave gaps with your reader. You are doing all the hard work so that your reader can sit down looking at a standalone submission and make sense of everything that you did. I'm sorry, there's an annoying WhatsApp running around here about people submitting something. So yes, absolutely. Lots of work in terms of analyzing and evaluating data. Please don't leave this last minute. It's going to take time to make sense of that data. You will see part 3, and we'll go through the brief now, talks about preliminary findings. That means this is not your final. We want you to start working and start looking at the data. All of this is going to come together in that final submission, the research report, which if I'm looking at PAS, at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, we're sitting with the date of November the 17th for the research report. So there's about 4 weeks or so between the part 3 submission and your final report. So you're going to do a lot of work there. But we are using these milestone submission, folks, as building blocks to construct and compile the final product where everything is now taken up and included, and you're building this whole thing. That said, I want you guys to treat the final report as a standalone new submission. Don't just add a lot of stuff together. I always tell students, it's when sometimes you make food, you cook a potjie kos, and then someone says, no, you know what, it needs some sweetness. You've got the core flavors. What's it called? Sweet, sour, bitter, umami, or something like that. And someone says, let's add a bit of chutney here. And they add chutney and say, no, it's too sweet. Let's add some beer. Now it's got a funny taste. Let's add some, and you often end up with something that you cannot eat because you're just gooing stuff together. Don't do that in a final report. Treat it as a complete new standalone, because remember, and I'm saying this, jumping the gun in a sense, but it's important, and I want to say this evening. You yourself are getting myopic as you continue with this research, and it's a good tip I'm giving you now. Every so often, I want you guys to zoom out and to read your work as if you are reading it like an outsider. Why am I saying that? You are so busy with this project. I know it's a consuming undertaking. Yes, you are eating, sleeping, thinking, talking, drinking, research, and your project is in your mind and in the back of your mind all the time. So we tend to sort of drown in that project, and sometimes it's difficult for us when we write to convey everything that we need to convey from someone coming out from the outside. Especially in your 4th assessment, the final report. Now, this person has never, ever seen your work. Remember, your pod leader is familiar with your study. Your pod leader was there from day one, holding your hand, and you moved together forward. But now, someone who's never, ever had any acquaintance with your study whatsoever is coming in and picking up that paper and reading that for the very first time. So always zoom out and read through the eyes of someone that comes in as an outsider. That's important. All right, I'm rambling a bit, but what is the next outcome? And I've had a lot of questions from students saying, what about this and presentations? And we had some presentations. What's exactly the purpose? Let's go through the brief. It's a 10% weight, so it's not a massively weighing presentation, but it's an important one. I think, in fact, it's a pivotal point in your study, because if you nail this one, folks, it's going to put you on a winning trajectory to tackle part 4. I keep on saying part 4, the research report, the 4th submission, the 4th and final submission. If you bugger up part 3, it's not gonna line you up or set the scene or put you in a space where you are ideally positioned to gooi millies with a research report. So I want you guys to take this one serious. It's the place where you can really dig deep, where you can bring things together, where you can tie your things together and the loose ends together and make sense of this whole thing. Not in a big hoo-ha way, That's going to happen on the 17th of November, but put down something that provides a foundational basis on which you can build something very successful going forward in that next submission. It's about data, it's about real data. And remember, guys, you are scientists, you are academic gatekeepers, you are institutional representatives. Yes, your research output is under the magnifying glass and it's under scrutiny from the whole wide world. Did you know that there's not everyone is excited about the IIE getting university status? Not everyone is jumping up and down. There's people that not necessarily want us to move in that direction and to succeed. So our post-grad research output is definitely under scrutiny. It's definitely the big brother in our case is the CHE, guys. The CHE compiles audits of our research output as well. Why? Because we're looking at the quality of student we produce. If you guys decide to continue with studies and you want to go a 1-up level NQF, which means you're sitting in an 8 now, which is the same as honors, you guys have a ticket to go to an NQF 9, of course. And now the CHE is looking at us to see what is the quality of students we produce within the IIE brand if you approach maybe a different institution. And I know there's some of you who are exactly now fixing your eyes at other institutions. Of course, some of you will tell me, sir, I'm going to continue within the IIE brand. I'm looking at a master's or whatever. Some of you will say, not now. I'm going to just focus on my career for the moment. Maybe in a while, I will tell you, and I'm telling that with a big grin on my face. When you're done with this and you hand it in, you are going to be gatvol. That's the Mooi Afrikaans word. I don't know what the English for gatvol is. But you will see in due time, mark my words, you're going to miss the intellectual stimulation. You're going to miss the language. You're going to miss the critical thinking. You're going to miss that. And a lot of you will tell me in a while, sure, you know what? I feel I want to continue with studying, maybe in a year's time or whatever the case may be. So that's always nice. So never close that door and make the best of this, guys, because what you do here is obviously going to play a part in your application toward your next levels of studying and so forth. Now, my computer is throwing out funny stuffies, but it all looks to be fine. Okie dokes. I haven't forgotten about the chat. I'll definitely look at that. So part 3, not that much of a biggie in terms of the weighted marking, but a biggie in terms of the importance of this as a pivotal submission in your research journey, folks. I'm sharing now the one that I actually want to come to, and I'll look at your chat first, America. I think research methodology part 3 is up on my share screen. Right, let's leave that for a moment while I look at this. I'm sorry, guys. I've got students handing in this evening. Can I quickly answer them? I do apologize. They are frantically asking me something here about submission. I do apologize. Please excuse me for 1 second. This is about peer evaluations in the honor space on group assignments. I don't know if you guys also encountered that. It's something that that was brought in where students do peer evaluations, but it is a bit of a difficult process. Okay. Back to Medica's chat. Okay, folks. Good evening, everyone. Just posting these questions here can be answered as we go. How many credible sources are we allowed for each bullet point? Okay. No one's going to penalize you for over-referencing. That's my short answer. You will never, ever get penalized for over-referencing. So at discretion, in some of your submissions, there might have been minimum sources. And again, that's always minimum. Nothing impresses me more when I look at a submission and I see, wow, there's lots of references. To give you an idea, in your final report, it wouldn't surprise me if you pretty much end up with pages and pages of references. So whatever you can do now and whatever you can use now, by all means, do that. So I like the fact that you say credible sources. That whole discussion and that whole thing about dated sources, be careful. Don't overuse internet sources. Be careful. There's sometimes a question mark, or listen, isn't internet sources perhaps dodgy? Please use a balance, guys. Books, I see books here, but books are difficult to get to what you want to get to. Academic articles, remember we had the librarian with us, EBSCO host, JSTOR, that other one, theory or something and something that sits in our database. Wonderful articles. Again, I want to say this for two reasons. Article is very condensed. You've got an absolutely synoptic view of something. And in every single academic article, there's always a lot of references that you can follow from there. So you can branch out from academic articles. That would be, in my book, your number one credible source for academic work. So I don't think there's a limit on that. I think you can really go ballistic with that if you want to impress academics. The second thing you ask is, after we analyze the data collection underneath that theory, we explain the steps on how we transcribe and interviews on our own words, meaning we do not reference, but we can still paraphrase. I'm not exactly sure what you mean here. There's a lot of places for you to reference. I want to tell you the two main places where you use and incorporate references in your study. The first that comes to mind, obviously, is your review of contemporary literature. Yes, that's what it is. Literature review is all about references and incorporating references and sharing with us and making sense of what the current or contemporary scholarly voice has to say about the topic that you are looking at. So absolutely, and I think you guys will agree with me. Sometimes you read an academic article. I always say academic reading isn't like a bedside reading, hey? Not at all. It's not colloquial language, it's not literary language. And sometimes you read an academic thing and you say, yo, it's you read a word and then it's a reference, and you read and then there's a reference. That's the way it rolls, hey? So academic reading is literally, what's the word? Not cluttered, littered with references. And that's the way we roll. So good academic work contains listen to me, relatively large amount of references. Literature review, references. That's what it's about. When you start talking about methodological decisions, references are also important to motivate your selections. Very important. You talk about the paradigm that you're using. Remember, a paradigm is the same as a worldview or a tradition. It's the same thing there. In Research Matters, there's a page explaining that. The same thing, same concept, different terms. You should use research methodology text to support the selection and motivate the selections you made in your research methodology design. In other words, you lean on and you draw on the research methodology scholarly work, research methodology book, to say this is appropriate as it allows the researcher to gain in-depth insight according to. Can you see what I'm saying? We want you not to rewrite the textbook for us. We don't want that. Remember, your work is read by academics. We know what it is. So don't rewrite a textbook. Use the text to motivate your selection. So your voice, your story, your journey, your strategy, your planning, that's what I want to see. But I want you to use and draw on those references to support and give credibility to what you are saying there. Don't theoretically pad, folks, and this is not such a big thing in the case where you're going to make slides, but it's a big thing when you chase word count and you write 2 pages on the difference between quant and qual, only to end up in a sentence where you say the researcher opted for a qual approach. But now you wrote 2 pages on the difference between quant and qual. And normally I see that when students are chasing word count. In other words, you want to fill your word count, so now you start writing unnecessary theoretical padding to get your word count up. Don't do that. Yes, you can briefly touch on that, and you can say something like, what's the word I'm looking for? In contrast to a quantitative approach where metric and so on is important, put a reference in there. The researcher is of the opinion that a qualitative approach is suited for the aim of this study, as it will allow this and this, according to, and you put your reference in there. So you balance and you explain, and we know, you know what you are talking about. What we want to see in this whole research project is just that you understand research. There's 3 things. Let me reiterate what they are. You can plan the research. All right, you've done a lot of that now, and most of you, I think, are at the place where we said we're happy with your planning. You've given us a roadmap or a blueprint that we are satisfied with. The next step now is you have to actually conduct this. You must do this. You must do the physical research data collection part of this whole thing. And then the third, very important aspect is, can you now record? In other words, write up your research project. So it's that 3 things: plan, physically do or conduct, and then record or write up a research project. That's the 3 things I want to see you guys demonstrating a skill that is good enough for us to reward a passing mark for you for the module and your research report. All right. I do think it's interesting that we do that. So there's lots of opportunity for you to incorporate references in your research methodology sections. On that point, guys, not that there's anything in reality wrong with it, but when you overuse one specific research methodology text, it kind of looks funny. It kind of, when I see deploysal here, deploysal here, deploysal here, deploysal here, deploysal here, deploysal here, you might sort of ask the question, the student might have consulted other research methodology text as well, instead of just using and overusing one specific source all the time. So try and bring that in and bring other research methodology text in there as well. You know, the other advantage of that is that also grows your reference list. Now you add another reference there. Okay. So when you start with references now, keep good track of them. References can run away, guys. Get a system. The minute you use a reference, capture it already in the Harvard Anglia adapted IIE style and park it. And get a system where you organize your references. We think we will remember what we don't. It gets chaotic. All right. So yes, please use it to motivate selection. So happy about Emirates. Yeah, me too. It's such a wonderful thing. That's all that everyone is talking about. Naomi says, can we do some copying and pasting from part 1 and 2 without worrying about self-plagiarism? Naomi, thank you so much for that question. We do expect that your similarities will climb, so that's absolutely perfectly fine. In fact, we might see that similarity scores might climb up to approaching 100 at the end of your of your semester when you submit your final. If we go into that, then obviously we're going to see that your work is flagging your own previous submissions. There is something we call self-plagiarism. At this level, we're not going to worry about that. There is something when you're busy with your PhD and you're writing articles where you will actually reference and cite yourself. We're not going to put those layers of complexity on you guys. We say this is part of one final submission, and all these milestone submissions are building up. So you don't have to self-cite this work, but we are not concerned about your similarities rising as your submissions build on each other. I hope that answers your question. Thanks for the question, Naomi. I see Tangi is typing something. We'll get to that. All right, I'm looking at the part 3 brief. And this is a presentation. Now, what I'm not entirely sure about is the initial directive was that we're going to do this in class time. Now, as it is, we're sitting with our session 12 this evening. We've got 14 in total, which means we've got the 22nd of October, which is next week, Wednesday. You guys need to submit on the 24th. So I don't foresee that we're going to push you to submit on the 25th, on the 22nd. Yeah, the 22nd. And then we're sitting with the 29th, which is a week after. So that was sort of the date that I would earmark if we use timetabled space to do your presentation. Why? Because you've done your submission. It has to be done on the 24th. That's the fixed submission date, folks. But now also we want to get your mark finalized. So we want to get in close proximity. We want to get that, and I think the deadline for us as pod leaders is the 31st of October. So we want to get those in so that we can finalize and capture your mark and so on. Tangi, what can I do to minimize AI score even when I have paraphrased? Your AI is just becoming a headache, eh? I'm telling you. Let me tell you what I see in the AI space. My students that used AI in the first semester, I've had lots and lots and lots and lots of zeros, lots of 50% caps, here and there, one that was accepted. With a massive delay in time because it has to be flagged. It goes to adjudication, which can take weeks. Yes, weeks. And in the meantime, you're sitting here in anxiety, waiting for the outcome of the adjudication. And it comes back and you get a 0 or you get a cap at 50. AI is not your friend when it comes to generative aspects, period. Some students reported high AI scores for using grammar tools like Grammarly and the like. And the students that were bitten by AI, let me make a biting thing here, were bitten by AI, are telling me, sir, I am running away from AI. I don't want to see AI in my life. It hasn't worked out for me well. Guys, this is not a good time to get AI problems. So do things the old school way. If you use AI to order your thinking, that's it. And that's what we allow. To order your thoughts, to generate ideas inside your brain. The minute there's a generative aspect added, Tangi, you are in deep water. You are in trouble because the system's going to pick it up. I don't know if you saw, there's a little box that pops up now on our AI engines that says we've improved or we acquired additional licenses. Can you imagine how many millions it must cost us? That can detect the undetectable AI. Because remember, the guys that drive the AI will say, well, we come up with something new now. We've developed AI that cannot be detected. So use our system. And then the people that make the AI detection, maybe it's the same people, hey? They say a business case is you create a problem and then you create a solution for that problem. Who knows? So we can now detect undetectable AI. So AI, guys, it leaves a bitter taste in my mouth because I see students in tears, just hands in the air saying, oh my goodness, this AI messed up my stuff. Do this the old school way, guys. It's small enough in scope to do the old school way. On your backside with your keyboard, doing it. The AI hype and the AI thing, I think the AI hype, the pendulum is sitting here and I think it will centralize at some point. But at this point, it's a mess. It is, if I could use the figurative term, a slippery slope, folks. Avoid AI problems. We will not be lenient on that. We will be relentless. And the IIE has created capacity and manpower. So there's people and there's teams looking at dealing with AI contraventions, and the adjudications continue and so on. So please, I don't want you guys to touch AI. That's where I'm sitting. And if you do generative AI stuff, you are in deep, deep trouble. That's the standard situation. All right. Thanks for the question. Okay. Part 1, part 2, there's going to be some feedback. I'm going to give my students individual feedback on your part 2s tomorrow evening. Part 3, submission of the data collection method, ethics observed, data collected for analysis and preliminary findings. Now, the presentation addresses the content covered. What I was getting back to is we will check in the meeting following Nana with Checho and Renalda if we can, because I know some students are really busy and they would like perhaps to say, let's present in our normal timetable slots, because people have got other commitments and children and households and work commitments. So if they allow that, we might do that. This is not for the class. That's the first thing. This is a per pod situation. The pod will present in that pod to the leader of the pod, and the rest of the members will act as audience members. So if there's 6 people in your pod, there will be a meeting, there will be a link specifically for that pod generated by your pod leader, and you guys will all dial into this pod. You will take turns to present. Your pod leader will assess the work, and there will be an audience of your peers in that same meeting. It's not a one-on-one thing. It's not a class thing. It's a pod thing. That's the first thing. Exactly where we're going to put it, I think there's flexibility around that. We're not gonna intimidate you guys by saying we want to push it in front of the submission. I think it's better to do it after the submission of the physical stuff. So you're going to submit something. You're going to submit your slideshow on ARC, and obviously you save that as a PDF, and then you don't do voiceover on that, please. Just the document, because you are going to physically present in your own voice in real time using your slides as you present to the group. All right, I hope that makes sense. Now, the instruction says your task is to develop a presentation that provides a summary of the information to be included in your research report. So we are working toward the report. Marks will be awarded for the content as well as the presentation. So there's a content, what are you giving me? There's a presentation component, how well are you doing this? There's a visual component, how well does the visuals that you incorporate look? So a brief overview of the literature that guided your topic, a brief overview of the ResMed, a brief overview of the data analysis method and findings, and a brief conclusion. The presentation in your slot should not be longer than 10 minutes, so that's clear. Reference all sources accurately and correctly according to the Harvard IIE style, please. Then there's an assessment rubric, and let's quickly look at that. So the content, that's a big one. 40 marks. And I'm not going to go through all the detail here in the rubric. Please look at that. How are you presenting your stuff? Does the content, is it substantial? Is it academically rigorous? Is it scientifically credible? Is it scientifically objective? Are you giving me something that is academically sound? Does the data make sense? Is it coherent? Is it logical? Is it rational? Is it sensible? Are you making sense of what you found? Because there's no way that you're going to convince someone else about something if it doesn't make sense to you. Now, the good news is you are the ideal person to make sense of it, because this is your baby. This is your baby. This is your study. You are the subject matter expert in this whole thing. And you are the person who is most ideally equipped to do this. So again, take that boldness, take that believe in yourself, trust the process, and do this in a way almost saying, listen, I'm going to dig my heels in deep and I'm going to get through this. And you will see how your brain brings all this sort of almost ridiculous noise and chaos to an apparent coherent final product. All right, so there's a content component here. And you need to explain us what you did, because this is now after you've done it. So remember, we're not talking about abstract constructs. We're talking about stuff that you really did. You're going to write this and do this after you've done it, which means you have to get cracking on your data collection soonest, guys, so that you can put this together. Organization, how coherent and well organized and logical and sequenced is your your presentation, is your audience, are you drawing your audience in? Your delivery, are you well prepared, or are you sitting reading from a book next to you? When I see people presenting, they can be in three places. The first is here, on a phone or on a card. The second place is they at the presentation, and that's more in a live situation. They are there in the presentation. And the third place is they are in the audience. And they are looking at notes maybe, and they are pointing to a board now and then, but they are there because they are prepared. It's not necessary to read stuff from a book or a cell phone or a tablet, because you are prepared, which means you're going to run a couple of trials before you show up for the actual presentation. Don't come to that thing not prepared. There's a lot of marks resting on how well your delivery on the day is. And then there's visual design. Please, guys, I'm not a graphic expert, but what I can tell you, don't do funny stuff with slides. Don't go extravagant. Don't use funny colors and effects, like cars coming in and then driving off with tires screeching, or the typewriter that comes in, or the bomb that comes in. That it is impressive, but this is not the time and the place to do this. That academic tone that we're always talking about, the cold, hard, clinical, boring academic tone that we get in submissions, we want to get the same feel in your presentations. Make it interesting. Make it interesting by all means. But don't give us orange and purple and stars dropping down from the above and so on. That's over the top. You don't have to make it black on white. Really, you can make it interesting and put little interesting stuff in there. That's the first thing about slides. Don't clutter your slides. Don't go and copy a paragraph from your previous submission and put a whole paragraph on the slide, and your audience member must sit and read through the slide. That's not good practice. There's a couple of keywords on your slide and you fill in the rest. Maybe there's a skeleton, there's a structure in your slide, and you, as the speaker, put meat onto this presentation, making reference to those keywords, key phrases on the slide. Very important, guys. A cluttered slideshow is going to get you penalized and marked down, because you're bulldozing, you're overwhelming your audience member with content there, And instead of listening to you and making contact with you, they are trying to keep up and reading stuff here. You can throw in one funny slide for us, like a bomb at the end, America, an atomic bomb. Okay. Guys, I'm going to look at an email here that I received from, I'm not going to share that, from Reynolda. So, marks are awarded for presentation, format, delivery. There is no template provided for the students from the IIE side or from your pod leader side. Guys, you are adults, you are academics, you are postgraduates, and so on. You make something, you come up with something that's going to cut it. You come up with something that's going to do the job, that's got a professional look, that is fitting for what we are busy with here. Presentations must be conducted live with the remainder of the pod in attendance as the audience. We said that. Now, presentations are capped at a maximum of 10 minutes. Guys, if you go over a minute or two, I'm sure that's not the end of the world, but let's use the 10 minutes as a benchmark for the time on your presentation. And presentations must be referenced. As a guide, students could include 6 to 8 slides at least. There's an introduction, there's an overview of literature, there's an overview of ResMeth, there's an overview of your data analysis methods, there's an overview of your findings and a conclusion. So you can play around, I would say, between 6 or 8 or 10, maybe even more slides to convey that info. But you must know this story by heart, folks. You must come in there. Listen, I want to almost tell you, if I wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning in your bed and I say, listen, tell me about your research, I want you to have it on the tips of your fingers. That's how well I want you to prepare and become acquainted and know what you are talking about when we are talking about your research. And then it's completely natural. Then it's not something that you're going to battle to get out. It's going to be something that's completely natural, that's completely organic, because you know what you're doing, you know what you did, and you can, in a very almost easygoing way, flow with this process and just take a breath and share with us all of the stuff which you exactly know what's there. So don't let it intimidate you. I think it's a safe environment because we're doing it on Teams as well. So I know some people don't like getting up and speaking to audience in front there. So there's a bit of a buffer here with technology and so on. So it's a safe space. Plus, no one is going to make fun. No one is going to be made to feel exposed, vulnerable, anything like that. I mean, that's not the idea, and it's not tolerated. We are keen, we are eager to listen to what you have to say about your study. So let me just go back to that mail quickly and see. So there was some sort of an indication that we can work within our timetable slots initially. And then Reynolda indicated that we can maybe work outside that as well, depending on the availability of students. So let's get, I think the jury is still out on that one, but let's get that discussed when we meet after. Fact of the matter is there will definitely be a link provided. The link will dial you straight into the right meeting. You'll get a specific link for your pod. You will get in there. You're going to share from your side. I think that will be the easiest. Your pod leader will already sit with a copy, a soft copy of your presentation in PDF format. I prefer. So that's already there. The Teams meeting is going to allow you to present, and you're going to take us through that, and we're going to record all of that. So in my case, again, there's 6 of you, so we're going to finish within the space of an hour or so. I don't know if there are bigger pods. Some pods might be bigger and produce or over more than one day. I don't think so. I think all of us, our diaries are so busy. Let's try and nail it in one go. Now, this will make sense after you've gotten your data. So obviously that's the next big thing now, is to go and get this data so that you can put this thing together. And that is why we must make priority of obtaining the data, guys, so that this thing can now work. I want to tell you something which might sound funny, but it is the honest truth. It is almost as if a research project births itself, if you understand that. Maybe you will understand it later. So it's not so much a question of you toiling to get this done. It's more a question of you remaining faithful to the process, and you will see how things work out. You will see how things fall in place. That doesn't mean that it's not going to almost kill you. It is going to almost kill you. So that's fine. That's par for the course. This is not the time to complain about that. Let's do what we have to do. But do what you have to do and don't treat this as a sideline. If you're telling me, sir, I've got this and that and social obligations and I'll see when and where, then I'm going to guarantee you're going to fall off the bus. Please prioritize this research project for the next couple of weeks. It's a window out of your life, and then it is out of your life. Not far and not long from here. It's out of your life. So please, you're going to kick yourself if you do not allocate the necessary and required priority to this thing. It is intimidating. It is daunting. It is challenging. It is time consuming. Yes, it is. You're going to have sleepless nights and black rings around your eyes. If you don't have them, my question is, you are doing something wrong. Okay. That said, hey, go and get data. Go and get good data. Make sure you get good data. Qual guys, don't talk nonsense with those people and talk about the kids' netball practice and Eskom's corruption and all of that. Talk about the topic so that you get good data. You want to have depth in your database. You want to have substance in your database. Quant people keep a very close eye on what's happening. If you put something out on Google Forms or SurveyMonkey or wherever, manage the process. Look at your responses. Look at your data. Does the data make sense? Stay close to that so that you can come back and sit back and say, listen, I'm going to focus now on the analysis of my data so that I can draw my findings out of it. Everything starts with good data. If you come back now and you say, oh my goodness, I've done a lot of stuff, a lot of work, but my data is rubbish. Guys, we don't have time to give that a second round. We can't go back now and say, well, now I'm gonna redo the data collection. Try and make the best. Well, people, you want to get into the heads of those people. You want to draw, you want to milk, you want to get as much as you can out of their heads, because a qual study is about people's ideas, people's realities, people's perceptions. What are these stakeholders feeling, thinking? How do they rationalize and make sense of this topic from their perspective? Whether it's true or not is not important. Not in a qual study. We want to hear what people say and think. Quant people, you need good data. And a sample of 10 is not a big sample. So to get your stuff statistically valid and reliable, please make sure you get good data and don't get void responses. And if you use Likert scales, guys, and you use a 5-point Likert scale, you're going to get a lot of people that just go straight down the middle and give you 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. That's nonsense data. It's not meaningful. Rather use a 4-point scale so that people would either have to say, I strongly agree or I agree versus I strongly disagree or I disagree, so that at least they sit somewhere. Because people, because they are lazy and they don't want to really sit and look and work through stuff, People are very quickly to just go straight down the middle, neutral responses on quant. Be careful of that. Shelby says, when transcribing the data and a participant says something that might give away the identity, such as position of the company, yes, you can absolutely do that. So it's a verbatim, thank you, Shelby. It's a verbatim analysis, but you don't reveal anything of that. That said, your raw data is not going to land anywhere in the public space. Please keep your raw data very safe. We can ask for it and we will ask for it, but don't submit transcriptions, don't submit recordings, don't do a question by question analysis. Keep the data in a safe place, but your analysis is not the data. The database sits in a safe place, and keep it for 5 years at least. Guys, we have to jump out here. I hope the session helped you. There's not a lot more we can say now until you guys get cracking in getting your data. Let's see what happened in the second session. But here's the takeaway from this evening. The presentation will be based after you've done your thing and will be based on what you've done so far, including your preliminary findings. It will be a slideshow of 6 to 8, 10, maybe 12 slides, 10-minute cap. It will be your pod leader plus your pod peers in a unique customized Teams link, and it will be scheduled somewhere where everyone is on the same page. If it happens that it's in class, out class, I'm not sure, but it has to be done. And this will all happen definitely before the end of this month. And then the focus is, of course, on that last step. I hope it helped you guys. Good seeing you. And I hope I see some of you in the session afterwards. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do there, but I think it's valuable to attend. Take care, folks. Good seeing you, and we chat soon.